Today's guest is Emilia de Stasio, co-founder and COO of Artscapy, an award-winning platform that's transforming how people buy, manage, finance, and invest in art. With a background spanning the European Central Bank, Moody's, family office investing, and alternative assets, Emilia brings a rare combination of institutional finance expertise and deep passion for art collecting. Through Artscapy, she is on a mission to make the art market more transparent, accessible, and data-driven, helping collectors think about art not just as culture, but as an investable asset class. Emilia, welcome to Scaling with Clarity.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be invited.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and this is the continuation of the previous conversation that we started. I am curious though, what's the origin story behind Artscapy? Like most startups begin with a frustration. What was the moment when you and Alessandro looked at the art market and said, "This industry is broken; it needs to change"?
Yeah, so I'm apart from my financial background, I'm a collector myself. So I've been collecting contemporary art for the past, going on 15 years at this point. And as my co-founder separately, so we were both collecting art, met through the passion for art, really. And in that journey experienced a lot of the frustrations that go into being a collector today. And we wanted to solve it. So we had in mind, and funnily enough, is actually the work that's behind me here.
Okay, yeah.
You can see there. We wanted to acquire this particular work. It's a Nara. And we weren't able to find good objective information. We wanted just data and transparency, understanding, where's which is a good piece to buy from this artist, which is the best forum to buy it, where can I access good information, and we found it near impossible. So everywhere there is an agenda, there are different hindrances and things, loopholes for you to try to circumvent. And so we decided, okay, look, we want to make a difference here. So it even started actually as a almost as a hobby project, right? So we created this little platform. So I came from finance, and I was thinking, okay, can we use concepts coming out of finance and wealth management to try to distill and make art something that goes from being subjective and difficult to understand to something that is more objective and data driven? Can we use that using maybe processes from finance? While my co-founder comes from a career in running digital businesses, so thinking about how can we translate these processes into something that is more streamlined and easy to use. And so we set up this little platform. It was meant to be just for us and our collector friends, our little circle of friends. And one thing sort of led to another. We researched the market. More and more people told us, okay, actually, you're onto something really, really interesting here. And yeah, the rest is history. I mean, today we're a pretty big platform of 15,000 members globally. So I'm very happy to see how far we've come.
That's amazing. Congratulations. What was the start year for you? When you officially decided you're no longer a hobby, but a real business?
Yeah, so we launched a beta very, very fast. We were very fast to create the initial platform. It all started from basically a collection management, so something where you'd manage an art portfolio. And the more we started doing that, and the more we started testing, and with zero marketing, we quickly grew to a couple of hundred members. Then getting on 1,000, 2,000, and that's when we start to say, okay, this has a lot of legs, and we should look at this. And that's where, I mean, one thing that I've always been interested in as someone who's been a kind of quant market analyst in my professional career, I started to look into the market side of things. And so, the art market, although seemingly quite niche from the outside, is actually huge. So we're talking over 60 billion transacted every year. And
wow.
so we said, okay, let's actually focus on this. So I quit my job first, and he left about 6 months later. And we haven't looked back since.
That's amazing. Can you tell me, is this somebody that has lived in quant, and you said that the market is opaque?
Yes.
How do you go about building the data? Because data could be a proprietary mode. So how do you go about building the data to support Artscapy?
Yeah, so we look at data from a few different standpoints, and I think this is really the richness of where AI comes in, right? So the key benefit of our AI and what AI does better than a human is distilling and understanding large amounts of data in a very short span of time, and synthesizing different data sources. And so that's what we do today. So we pull together basically structured and unstructured data, in the sense of we have data from all the major auction houses, even over 1,000 auction houses that we pull in, which of course is a bit more structured. You have the public records of sales, but then we also look at aggregated anonymized data from our members. So what's being collected, how is it being held, and then looking at other data sources from the market. We also do social listening. We have also augmented the model through image recognition. So all these things help to sort of fine tune and bring in multiple data points. So not just looking at auction results as a guidance for where the market is, but also pulling in and understanding gallery data and how the market really moves.
Interesting. What was the hardest part about this? Is it getting the auction data? Is it building the platform? Is it getting the first customer? Kind of what was the hardest part in the journey?
There are many parts that are not so easy in this, and I think it's something that I've been seeing firsthand, also as an analyst myself. So even if there is data, the problem is often the kind of the cleanliness, if you will. So cleaning up the data, so having errors and typos, and the problem with that is a machine will read a typo as a new data entry, while you'd need, as a human, if I'm saying, okay, Banksy or vacancy is going to be the same thing, of course, right? But you'd need to go in and manually adjust those, and that happens a lot, and things being reported in different ways and slotting into different fields of information. So there's been a lot of work to understand and sort of standardize these sources, and I'd say distilling then the sort of more unstructured things. So which are the good data sources beyond auction houses that we can look at? How do we distill those into credible signals?
Emilia, I'm curious, if someone has never considered art as an investment, why should they consider it? And two, and this maybe it's a leading question, but there's a very famous professor that teaches at New York University, and recently when all of the tariffs were happening in the States, he came up and said, well, people should be putting more of the investments into collectibles or art, because there's no safe harbor left. Have you seen an increase that's disproportionate of just normal growth for you guys in terms of more people coming into the art market?
Definitely, I would say definitely yes. I think that there's quite a few trends that sort of feed into this. So I think one of them is this idea of art as a sort of safe haven, or another alternative asset. But there's also a lot of, especially in the younger generations of people coming into greater incomes and greater wealth. You have also the great wealth transfer. So all these macro trends feeding in. And so then the question comes, okay, what's the best way to manage these funds? What's the best way for me to allocate it, right? And then art comes in as a nice component in that portfolio. Now, I should say most people, and indeed, I say near all of our members, and what I'm seeing from collectors specifically, they're not necessarily doing it purely for a financial gain. Typically, people fall across the spectrum between passion and finance, and it's very rare that they will be only one or the other, so i.e. only buying for passion or only buying for financial gain. Typically, people sit across the spectrum. Yeah, and most of the time it's, okay, I'm allocating funds into this asset, and they, would like to not lose money. So it's more, that is the question. But the way to do that then is by having data and transparency and understanding that asset class. Then still from a market research standpoint, you do see that art tends to perform by and large decently well. Again, depends on how you cut and slice the sample, right? It's very easy for me to pick out superstar stories of something that was bought 2 years ago that now sold for 50, 60% more, triple the amount, right? But I can also handpick examples of something similar to the opposite. So I would always caution to look at this as it's not a homogeneous asset class, right? It's not you can buy any work and expect to do well. But I would say that goes into any investment, right? It's like saying, okay, if you buy any stock, it's gonna go up in value. No, you have to know what you're buying, and not all the stocks are going to do well, and not all of them are going to go up. It's the exact same principle that goes into art. But then what's interesting on the flip side, I would say, is this idea of the uncorrelated nature. So by and large, I would never say that art is immune, right? So still, when times are bad, people do get cautious with their spending in general. Overall, that's of course the case, but it's going to move less in tandem with other assets, which makes it interesting from a kind of a finance 101 sort of portfolio construction standpoint. And so that's also why people are drawn to it. But then finally, I would also say there's also the sort of non-financial element that people really, really like.
Enjoyment.
Yeah, it's your personal enjoyment. So now I personally cannot imagine life without art. So I take benefit from it every day. It inspires me on a daily basis. But I also like the idea of being able to support cultural production. So by me buying art, especially particularly from living artists, it means that I'm actively supporting their work, right? And helping to either shape how we think as a society, or pushing certain questions and making them something that is more aware in society. So and we do see that as a general trend. So this almost a sort of social investing or impact investing, with the vehicle for that being art. And so there's all these streams, so across the financial bits and the non-financial bits, that draw more and more people into the world of art. And so that's where we're really hoping to also be that tool to enable people to do that.
Amazing. Is there a particular strategy that works better than others? Like, for example, like you mentioned, living artists. Should most people attempt to buy their first art, or buy their art directly from artists or galleries, rather than acquiring their pieces via auctions? Because then the auction house is the one auction house is the previous owner, is the one that recognizes the gains.
Yeah. So I think a couple of points here, right? So I think as with almost any investment, diversity is the name of the game. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Is really the same portfolio thinking that applies into a diversified art collection. From that standpoint, you probably want to anchor in as much as possible, anchor with a few kind of more blue chip works, which will be kind of your more famous names. Then you can have more emerging artists that maybe speak to more personal topics, or that are more kind of the rising stars of the art market. So that's really if you're looking at it from a portfolio construction. But of course, there are also people that will collect thematically. So again, I mean, personally, our collection has evolved from. I mean, we rarely buy, let's say, pure blue chip works anymore. We buy a lot of emerging, earlier stage artists, and we buy thematically. So we collect across different themes, and that's the reason sort of for collecting. And then of course there is an element of financial understanding. Okay, where are we putting the money? But it's not necessarily thinking we should buy this because that anchors the portfolio and then it's going to rise in value so and so much. But yeah, if you want to think along those terms, then still that kind of portfolio thinking does apply. But I think the overall sort of message is the research, right? Goes into, again, we're back to investment sort of 101. Yeah, like wherever you put your money, you need to research and understand where you're putting it. Now, then there are few ways to acquire that knowledge, right? Either you acquire it yourself. So you study and you understand the art market, you start to get into it, you need to understand the data, look at the data, or you start to work with a provider or a servicer, or an art advisor as such, or a platform like Artscapy, which gives you these kind of insights. We have also obviously our human advisors that help to shape the collection. So even if you're starting from zero, plenty of our members join Artscapy because they're trying to start to build a collection, but they don't know, they maybe don't know where to start, what's a good place to start. And so we help from that stage. So I would say that needs to always be the guiding thinking behind.
Are you able to double click on thematic buying? Kind of like what do you mean by this? I mean, obviously, theme is the word at the root of the word, but what do you mean by thematic buying?
Yeah, so I mean, drawing on my personal experience. So essentially, we in our collection we collect across 3 themes. I mean, one of the things that we want to do with the art collection. So we now have, I think, about 200 to 250 works or so in the collection. So it's quite big. And the thinking there was we want to collect only living artists. So we want to collect and be custodians of part of the story that we lived through. So, as much as I admire Basquiat or Warhol, I didn't personally live those days and years in New York in the 70s, 80s. So I wasn't there. So as much as I admired, I don't feel like I want to capture that part of art history because it's not part of my history. And so we collect living artists from our time, and then we look at 3 strands, which basically social political topics. Kind of we think about it as sort of an environmental field, so how nature and humanity clash and sort of the destruction of nature by humankind, and those topics tackled in art. And then sort of identity formation, so what goes into making Emilia and Maxim across the board. So not just maybe maybe gender, but also what we consider as home, what do I consider as my nationality. So these kind of deep, profound topics expressed in art. So when we look at a work, there's a lot of thinking and research that goes into it. So one, does it fit into these themes? Does it speak to us in those areas? Can we get to know the artist? Can we meet the artist? Can we understand more of their background, their practice? How does this work sit in what they're doing and within the wider span of art history in some sense? So also there, if you think about artists as the prime sort of social scientists of the world, they are really incredible in the way of capturing not just the present time, but almost predicting what the current issues are that persist over time, right? And that's what I find really, really exciting about art as an asset. So that's kind of how we look at the collection. But there are also definitely people that, as I said, have an even stronger maybe sort of impact agenda. Maybe they only buy works from female artists, or maybe only, let's say, LGBTQ artists, or maybe only from the African diaspora, or only this and this specific theme, or maybe only tackling these and these issues. So that's how people can look at it. So they can be different, I would say, criteria lenses, but it's the same. I would say that you can still approach it thematically, even stocks, right? Because you can say, okay, I only want to invest in tech. I like AI. I'm only going to buy AI companies, chip makers, and then I want to buy a bit of EV vehicle producers, and then that's the themes of your stock portfolio. So really, it's, although maybe what I just said now feels very art specific, is actually, if you expand it,
applicable.
It's applicable across any asset class. Also there, if you're thinking, let's say a wine investment, right? You may specialize and say, okay, I'm only going to buy Burgundy producers, or I really only like champagne, so I'm gonna buy producers of that. Really is all the same thinking. And I think some of these themes are things that come up over time. So maybe you start looking at art from sort of this idea of, okay, let me build a diversified portfolio. I'll buy maybe something sort of blue chip and a few things more emerging, and a few sort of mid-career artists, have something balanced. And then as you start to look at it and live with it, you start to say, okay, actually, I'm very much drawn into this. And then you can start to shape the collection. And I think that's the beauty and joy of buying art, right? It's not just buying, it's the intellectual stimulus, it's the deep thinking, it's what it gives you on a daily basis, right? Which goes above and beyond any other investment.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I have a passion for wine. I own a number of companies in wine, and it's amazing to see. There's a lot of similarities between wine and art, and particular, it like we've done a ton of events at art galleries because they just kind of appeal to the same customer. But if we're speaking about the customer, from your perspective, what separates somebody that's really good at buying art versus somebody that just buy expensive art?
Well, I think the point there is, once something is already expensive, it doesn't matter how we define expensive, but whatever that number is, when art has hit that point, there's less upside left, right? So buying an Andy Warhol today, yes, it's a stable. It can be a stable investment. Not every piece. Again, I'm generalizing very much now, and again, this isn't sort of investment advice in any shape or form. But there's not, a Warhol is probably not going to triple in value, right?
No. Yeah.
While an artist that, maybe recently graduated a decent art school, has had some good shows, is being picked up by institutions, showing at museums, progressing through sort of gallery ranks, maybe enters into other prominent collections.
Mm-hmm.
But if you manage to spot those kind of artists, then there can be a chance that they increase quite a bit in value,
Mm-hmm.
right? So still, I'm not sure that necessarily makes you the best sort of collector or investor, but maybe from a financial standpoint, you could possibly have a stronger upside, right? But again, there's always the risk return trade-off, right? So buying an artist that is earlier career, there's a higher risk from that standpoint, but there can also be a higher return in that sense. And still, so art is a long hold asset, right? So it can perform decently if you hold it for a long time, right? And long means 7, 10, even more years than that, ideally. And that's where you can see some decent returns, basically.
I mean, I like Future Ventures is in the business of scaling up companies. We are launching our first fund, and so I can't help but find the similarities there, because essentially building a fund, we're scouting for companies, and you're trying to find the right company, the needle in a haystack to invest in. Do you guys do something similar on the art side, where you're scouting for the right art? Because obviously, in your mindset, you're currently describing is exactly like you're tracking artists through their journey, and you're investing in the ones that they're on an upward trajectory. But like, what is the Artscapy approach in terms of scouting for artists?
Yeah, and I really like this that you brought this up, because that analogy is very clear, and what makes art quite difficult from that sense. So if we compare it to watches, for example, by and large, we can probably name the ones that are the sort of investment grade sort of makers, right? And then within that, obviously, you have to find the right model. It's about rarity, etc. But I don't want to say it's standardized, but we all know, okay, kind of Rolex, particularly whatever, they're gonna do decent, right? But art, that list is quite big. And again, even within that list, so if I come back to the idea of Warhol, right, which is tends to year over year be the most liquid artist, is not every work that's going to perform well or sell well. It's also how do you sell it, how do you buy it, at what point do you buy it, where there comes in the sales channel as well. But going back to sort of what you were saying in terms of finding companies, there is a lot of that same thinking, right? Because once you go out from the really the top layer of the blue chip works, or still even within blue chip works, is finding that gem, which is a good deal, right? So there's also a lot of, I mean, there's a certain art to collecting in that sense, right? Because there are so many great artists, but you have to at some point think, is this something that I like and believe in? Do I like this artist practice? And I think that's where really the long-term thinking has to come into play, right? You have to be ready to live with this work for 10 years or have it be the owner and custodian of it. So never buy any art that you don't like yourself, right? So and everything, as with any investment, is very easy to enter into the fallacy of the of hindsight bias, right? So it's very easy to say, okay, I could have, would have, should have bought this artwork or that stock or that whiskey barrel or whatever, because now I see it did really well. But it's not so easy. And so we definitely do a lot of this scouting, for personally for our collection, but also on behalf of our members. And that's where the data comes in, and that's where looking not just at one variable makes sense. So in the way we look at data, although we do provide through AI, we provide sort of an AI estimate of the market value. That's not the end of the story, right? The data point of, okay, our estimate that this artwork is valued so and so much on the open market today, in isolation, actually doesn't tell you all that much. What you really need is the context, right? So what's the depth of the market, liquidity, what's the momentum? Okay, the data point, the price is X today, but is that X likely to go up or down? If it's likely to go up, maybe I should buy it now. If it's likely to go down, is another story. And so that's why we approach it sort of so holistically, right? So if we have several like areas that we look at, we look also at geographic arbitrage, because maybe there's an opportunity. Okay, you've decided that, okay, I would like to buy this artist. Okay, but where are you going to buy it? How are you going to buy it? Which is the piece? You have to have in mind also the transportation, because again, you're dealing with a physical good, right? So that piece either needs to move to you or into a free port, into a storage. So there's all these complexities, which is again why we built Artscapy to begin with, to take care of each of these steps, to really just leave you with sort of the joy part of collecting. So buying stuff that you like and having the guidance to buy things that you like, and for us to sort out the remaining steps. But yeah, so finding those kind of gems is where the data comes in, and I'm sure, without having gone under the hood of you guys' models, they must be quite intense in some sense, quite comprehensive, right? And that's why you say no 99 plus times out of 100, because it needs to fit the bill. And it's always the case when you're the investor or the buyer. There are always too many opportunities that are interesting compared to what you can actually say yes to. And the same goes with art, and that's why you need the transparency and the data to make those decisions.
Yeah, I completely agree. Saying no is probably the hardest thing that people have to learn, because it's easy to say yes. It's comfortable saying yes. You make the other person happy, but saying no is hard. I agree.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, with art, then especially if you have the pleasure to also meet the artist. I mean, yesterday we went to an opening of an artist we recently bought a work from, and he was showing new works, and you're there, you want to buy everything. and he's right there. We spoke to the artist, and it's giving you that added joy, because you get to understand the process, the thinking behind the deeper meanings, because also the beauty of art is also that we take different things from it, right? So maybe for you this painting is aggressive, but for me it's calm. Maybe for you it reminds you of a beach day, but for me it reminds me of the night, or what have you. And that's also the beauty of it. The sentiment and the thinking that you take from it. But and it's hard to say no, because you want to keep supporting them. But that's where I think that, again, the same as with any investment, you have to keep a sort of a cool head in some sense and follow your process, because otherwise that's where you start to maybe make mistakes, in the sense of maybe you buy things that you in hindsight didn't really want to get, or then maybe you regret buying or something later on.
But if people follow your advice in terms of buy for enjoyment, passion, emotion, and then economics, even if the economic value doesn't pan out, you still have the piece of art to enjoy. Yeah, maybe didn't appreciate, or maybe
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I say, so regardless of how or why you're buying, it should always be something that you are comfortable with keeping and having, so for the next 5-10 years, or however long it might take to sell it, should you need to. But again, that's also why we, for example, we started to lend ourselves. So Artscapy is also does securitization, right? So that would be a way for you to access liquidity, just the same that people are leveraging their stock portfolios, drawing out equity from their houses, properties, etc., as a way to unlock liquidity to meet whatever their needs are, right? So without needing to sell. So maybe you have a sizable portion of your income or wealth tied into art, but now you have also a way to access funds from that without needing to sell, or without waiting for them to sell, or selling in a bad moment.
Curiosity question. Out of the 15,000 members, how many of them are institutions versus private collectors? Is it primarily, are the institutions coming in onto Artscapy?
Yeah, we have. So we started the focus of the platform has been the individual collectors, and by and large that's a lot of them. But we also have sort of family offices, in kind of institutional collectors, kind of trusts and charities as well. And so there is a kind of a solid B2B angle to what we do as well. And in particular, a lot of family offices will have an allocation into art in some sense, because they want to have it in their properties, or for diversification reasons. So definitely those are our members as well. I mean, we also have advisors that help to manage collections for their clients, and they're using Artscape as a tool to do so. So definitely it's sort of across the board, but yeah, the lion's share are going to be private collectors as such.
Understood. I mean, you guys introduced a novel financial product in terms of securitization of the art. Do you envision the art market moving in a direction where it's a lot more ubiquitous, a lot more people using it, it's a lot more liquid? Kind of like, what does the future of art look like in your eyes?
I think so. I think art will be seen the same as any other asset. So I think definitely. I mean, if you look at how people invest today, I mean, long gone are the days where you have kind of 60% equity and 40% fixed income. Like that doesn't exist anymore. Or like 50-30 and then some into alternatives. Like that kind of portfolio setup is less and less part of the story. People are flocking into alternatives now. Call it crypto, call it collectibles, call it art. I really see that as the future, and that's something that people are really looking at. So across millennials, Gen Z, they're looking for alternative ways. I saw a really interesting survey at this point it will be decently old, but it will still be within the last year. There was a survey by Bank of America looking at how Americans are investing, and they looked at millennial and Gen Z. Some 75% were skeptical that you could make what was called sort of meaningful returns with just traditional assets. So if you have 3 out of 4 people who don't think you can make sort of any reasonable returns through stocks, they're going to be looking elsewhere. And indeed, the portfolio allocations across those kind of demographics and segments were very heavily tilted, or are heavily tilted, into alternatives. And that is going to be across property, real estate, crypto, art, collectibles, wines, etc., classic cars. So I really see us moving into this more fluid allocations. Also, the value of art of these financial and non-financial benefits, and how art really informs us in the daily thinking. So definitely moving in this direction. And I think we're not the only company on the market that's supporting the wave of transparency. So the kind of the consumer or the person of today wants access, transparency, interconnectedness, and streamlined services, and that's where art is moving. Art is becoming easier and easier, I think, in large part because of the things we are pushing, but also others making it much easier to access the art world. So it's really coming out of the shadows, which is a beautiful thing, in my opinion.
Emilia, do you see fractionalization playing a role in more people owning art?
Yeah, so I go very much personally back and forth on this. So I personally I don't like the concept of fractionalization. Why? Because you've stripped out the last element of passion from art. So in fractionalization, no one enjoys the art, no one sees the art. So collecting itself is obviously a fairly selfish thing. Only I will see this work on a daily basis, and maybe my dinner guests, but that's about it, right? So for many years, those are the only people that are going to be influenced positively by this work. So I grant that it's a fairly selfish activity to be doing, but at least that there is someone enjoying and taking also the non-financial joy and beauty of art, which is what the artist wants, right? They're not producing art for someone else to make money. Their whole point is, okay, can I transmit an interesting thought, a message, idea to someone? And the problem with fractionalization is that element is completely stripped out. Those works sit in storage until they are sold again. So by buying art in a fractionalized manner, you're purely in the financial side, and only on the financial side. There's zero passion. Yes, you can take, but I've also increasingly, and I'm starting to buy into this argument as well, that people say, yeah, but it can be a good entry point, right? Because people start to get curious. They still start to see the artworks. They start to feel ownership of the artwork. They start to say, okay, yeah, but I own a piece of a Picasso or of a Warhol. I've always wanted to have a Picasso, and now I have part of one. And that can be a beautiful thing, and maybe that becomes a stepping stone into buying more art and really getting into the art market in that sense. And if so, then yes, it can be a really, really nice thing. But because fractionalization itself is, you're really just looking at a financial upside at the end of the day. That's the thing that I don't like personally. But still, we work with fractional platform partners, and I think, judging by the amount of audiences that are growing into these platforms, that definitely does seem like that latter perspective, i.e. of fractionalization becoming this sort of stepping stone, seems to be what's playing out, right? So that's an interesting angle to it. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, my perspective is like, both you and I come from a race background, and so if I'm buying a fraction of a Warhol painting, it's steady assets, right? It's not going to depreciate in value. It's only going to appreciate, not to the same degree as a new artist or emerging artist, but I get a piece. I get to diversify from maybe holding securities and stocks. So that's kind of the perspective. But in adjacency to this, what, like, I can't remember now, but it was a few years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, the NFT craze and kind of like, what's your perspective around? Because then that was kind of like almost the reverse. Like everybody get to enjoy the asset, but one person is the owner of it.
Yeah, so I think that was very much driven by hype and speculation, right? So if you looked at who were the market makers of those days, were
Mm-hmm.
people with strong agendas. So that very famous Beeple sale was made to like a crypto fund, or he was like a big
Mm-hmm.
crypto investor, the guy who bought it. So it's not, yes, okay, it sold for some, I think it was nearly 70 million, which is astronomical. But I wouldn't say necessarily that person bought it because that work has a solid addition to the
Fundamentals.
art history, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's also why sort of the bubble in some sense burst, because so an NFT at the end of the day is just a medium, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, we've invented this new linen cotton mix canvas. Okay, but what matters is what's on it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
here's an NFT, but what matters is what's on the NFT. Is it, yes, we can have a photograph or a digital work, or for video work. These
Mm-hmm.
things can be great because you can establish authenticity, provenance, the true creator gets benefit from it. But it's not that being an NFT on its own is going to carry value. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what we saw in that bubble. So there was a lot of market making in the sense of driving speculation that went into this, which casts various impressions on the world of what makes art or not. And I think the history always reveals itself. So quality is what wins at the end of the day.
Speaking of quality, I'm curious, what is your perspective on AI and how AI is impacting the art industry? I mean, like I can tell you from my personal perspective, I am a better writer. I am a better storyteller because of AI. It's not a substitute in any way. Like I only use this enabler, kind of like from your vantage point, what is and what has been the impact of AI on art?
Yeah, so I think it's important to split out the applications, right? Because a lot of people will, when you say AI and art in a sentence, people will say AI, think of AI producing art.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that application and the success of that application is very limited. Now, of
Mm-hmm.
course, and we're going to play this clip to me in 10 years and I'm going to be totally wrong. But I think because art
Yeah,
is fundamentally human, great art
yeah.
is fundamentally human, by definition, is something that cannot be done, right? So I think AI in that sense can produce something that could be popular. So
Mm-hmm,
probably we see that in AI producing music and writing stories and writing plays, right? They can create something that is pleasing,
mm-hmm,
sure, and maybe AI art in that sense are going to make these compositions and creations that are
mm-hmm,
pleasing to look at, but are they going to have that depth and that conceptualism that great art has, that goes
mm-hmm,
beyond that? I think it great art sits outside the box, right? So
mm-hmm.
things that are
Okay.
decorative or pleasing tend to not have strong value, right? So
Mm-hmm,
you don't really see in Christie's and Sotheby's these incredible landscape pieces, right? Because there isn't that commentary element or
mm-hmm,
that added perspective. And I think that will always fundamentally be missing
mm-hmm.
from AI generated art. I think
Yeah.
where AI can help in the still within the realm of producing art, it can help in the research, right? So as I said,
Mm-hmm,
artists are really, if you think about it, they're the prime social scientists of the world, right? And a lot of them do very deep research that goes into the work, and AI could probably help in that element, but then which could be a very good application because there's more space for the artist then to take in that information and conceptualize it into a work, and leaving sort of the creation bit with them and less into the, okay, let me understand the references, what's been said about this, what is an angle I can take on this as an artist on this topic. So that's where it could help, right? But I don't think like AI produced art is going to ever rise so high into prominence or importance. Then I think on the flip side of, you think AI applied to art or the art market as such, then I think one of the things that what we are doing is sort of a prime example of that, right? Because we go back to the idea of what does AI do better than a human? Synthesize and understand vast amount of data faster than a human can. That's exactly what we're doing. So our market intelligence looks at more than 5 million data points. We update it. It's dynamic, right? So in theory, we could be releasing new art valuations on a daily basis, but doesn't really make sense because art doesn't move at that frequency. But we can do that, and we can only do that because of AI. Like it would be physically impossible to replicate that kind of progress and that kind of accuracy with humans. And that for me is an objective statement, right? So that's the richness of AI, and I think that's where you can apply it. So AI in terms of data understanding, but also like flow optimizations, right? So if I'm a gallery, understanding, okay, how to best serve my database, or process improvement really is also a great application of AI. But and that's where I see really the value add of AI into art and into sort of any industry, is the process improvement. And I, like you, I think I spend 90% of my day using AI in some shape or form, either through Artscapy itself, because we have it natively in the platform, or just to assist me in my daily life.
Yeah, I agree. What it's kind of like, I know we're coming in time, but what advice would you give other founders that they're trying to modernize industry? Because there's plenty of industries that they're still kind of like 50, 60, 70 years old in the way that they do in business.
Yeah, so I think, it's a tricky one, because when you're trying to improve something and shift how something is done, there's going to be resistance, right? But that's a part of human psychology. We're resistant to change, right? But
change is hard.
Yes. I think the root there is understand at depth what is the problem you are solving, rather than the behavior, right? Rather than saying, okay, the process is this and this, people perform this transaction or project in these and these steps, okay, let me shift how they're trying to do that. No, attack what the problem is, right? So why are they doing this? What's the end goal of it? And if I can solve that, then I will be able to deliver value. And so rather process improvement, think of solution sort of enablement or delivery.
How do you guys go about discovering what the problem is in the art market? I mean, you said that you were passionate about art. Did you guys have to pivot along the way, or you intuitively knew through kind of personal life where the problem lies and attacked it right away?
I mean, we speak to our collectors on a daily basis. We get huge inputs from the team. I'm very proud and happy of the team that we've built, and and it's about accepting innovation and ideas from anyone in the team. So it doesn't matter if you're the most junior or the most senior. If you have an idea of how to make something better. I want to hear it, right?
Listen,
And I want to see it. Or you're getting this feedback directly from the collectors, then that's something that we want to look at and see if we can support.
Last question for you, Emilia. What's the kindest thing anyone has done for you?
Kindness. So I think, I mean, the greatest joy, I think, for me as a founder is seeing the value, right? So that we are able to give is hearing people that that maybe I don't know at all, but they've seen Artscape and they come and tell me, okay, wow, I can't believe that this didn't exist before. This has helped me, so much. Or I can really see how you are championing kind of transparency or really bringing incredibility into the market. And even without me saying those things, you're basically repeating our core values to me, and that's like, okay, well, we're having an impact, and two, we're able to, we're doing the right thing. So we're going for quality over quantity. We're going after value creation rather than a short gain, and seeing that sort of hard work actually pan into something is makes me cry of happiness. So I'm super glad to see that. And just now, I mean, and seeing that sort of permeate everywhere. So we just released, we're in a hiring round now, and I just released a couple of roles, and we've had 350 applicants that want to join our company. Is for me is incredible. Like I remember when there were barely 300 people that knew of our company's existence, and now we have so many applicants that want to join us and help make a better art market and enable more people into the arts. That's a beautiful thing, and that makes me incredibly happy and humbled as a founder.
Amazing. Congratulations on all of your success, and thank you so much for being such a graceful guest. I really enjoyed the conversation.
No, thank you so much. I feel so honored and thankful that you invited me, and I really hope that this has been useful.
Absolutely, and I hope it's useful to our listeners and viewers, and the ones that they're maybe considering dabbling into art, to give Artscapy a try.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thanks, Emilia.
Thank you so much.